lovely war. Who wouldn't be a soldier, eh? Oh, it's a shame to take the pay. As soon as the valley is
November the 11th is a very, very special day. To some, it's just another time to possibly have a few hours away from work and enjoy yourself, but to many, November the 11th is extremely special. The First World War, not too many survivors are still around. We're very fortunate here in Sault Ste. Marie to have known a man for the past quarter century by the name of Harold Tolley. We're going to go back to the years 1914, 1918, and remember, and possibly with this program you'll understand what Remembrance Day is all about. We'll be back with Harold Tolley in just a few moments' time.
to hear the bugler call. You've got to get up, you've got to get up, you've got to get up this morning. Someday, the rest of my life in bed. Take me back to
Anybody that smokes a pipe has to be a pretty good guy, and that's one reason why they live a long and healthy life. Harold Tolley, so nice to see you, and so nice to see that you're looking so well at the age of 90. We're going to go back in your memory.
Not quite 90.
Not quite? Well, they told me, the producer told me you were 90.
No, 16. I will be on the 16th of June next year.
Well, 89, with all due respect.
That's old enough, anyway.
Your memory, I hope it doesn't escape you as we go down, I don't know if we can call it memory lane, to the years 1914 to 1918. How old were you when you left Sault Ste. Marie and headed overseas during the First World War?
I'd be about 25, I guess, 24 or 25.
You've brought along some pictures of the gang, and if we can look at the monitor there, we'll pick up some of the faces and some of the people. The 119th Infantry is what the group in Northern Ontario was known as?
Yes, it was there were fellows who went overseas before we were organized in 14, you know. Like the second drafts were sent to the 2nd Battalion and to the 37th and so on.
Is that the gang on the screen there, Harold?
No, those are the signal section. See, they have the flags of the 119th Battalion, which is the first complete battalion organized from Sault Ste. Marie, from Northern Ontario. Mm-hmm. And we drew our recruits from the Sioux and all the way down the line, right to the Manitoulin.
And I would imagine the train right here is picking up the troops, the years 1916, right here in Sault Ste. Marie, on that picture
yes,
now.
Yeah.
And those were the soldiers?
Those were some of the fellows carrying their kit bags and
marching to the train station.
Marching to the train here, yes.
The train, I would assume then, Harold, would leave Sault Ste. Marie and then head on down the line and stop in every, like, all these...
They as I told you earlier, the 119th Battalion were the first complete battalion from the north to go overseas. They had about 900 men. I have a nominal roll of all the names of them. Not many of them alive now.
What were your thoughts, and what were the thoughts of, say, your mom and dad or your family when you left?
Well, we were all excited about it. Actually, we weren't drafted, you see. We were all volunteers. It was way before they started to draft anybody. And I don't know, we were just excited about it, and that's about it.
And from Sault Ste. Marie in Northern Ontario, you would head to the south part of the province, and you would go overseas on a boat, would you not?
Yeah, we went for training at Niagara-on-the-Lake, and then eventually we went by boat trained again to Halifax, and went by boat from there. We had about 2 weeks in Halifax, which was a picnic, more or less.
Thanks to your pictures, you've brought along some interesting pictures. That looks like a band.
That's the 119th Battalion Band. And they were a darn good band. And I marched a good many miles behind that band.
May we, while we're looking at the uniforms, and thank you so kindly to the Sioux Historical Society here in Sault Ste. Marie, maybe hold up a uniform. Now, this is the tunic with Canada machine gun badges, World War I. And thanks again to the Sioux Historical Society. The uniform, until just recent times, with the material and everything, was almost identical. It's just been in the last few years that the uniform sort of changed.
Yes.
Can you tell us, now here you have 3 stripes. What does that
That represents 3 years.
That's service. It has nothing to do with the rank.
No.
And this one over here has the 1 stripe on the left.
He'd be a Lance Corporal.
And this bar
that's a bar to show that he was wounded once.
And over here, Harold, is this a medal that this individual had won?
No, that's that's significant. It's a significant badge of the 1st Canadian Division. So he went from the 119th to the 1st Division in France, and they were issued with those badges. I have one too, because eventually I was in the 1st Division.
How well trained were you people when you went overseas?
Well, we should have been well trained, because we were in Whitley for a whole year, Whitley Camp in the 5th Division.
That would be in England?
In England, yes. The south of England.
Can you remember, can your memory go way back to when you left the camp in southern England and eventually wound up on the battlefront?
Well, the signal section was sent to a place called Camiers in France, and we had 3 or 4 months training there before we went to the front line.
What were you using? Over here again, we're very fortunate, and you'll have to help me. This says it's the Canadian Ross rifle, and this is a 1905 model. Now that cotton-picking thing must weigh about 10 pounds.
Yeah, they're heavy.
And this is actually what the infantry people...
They were using that when we went to France, yes.
I bet you couldn't even lift that now.
Well, I just lifted it before.
Okay, well that must be... Now over here, Harold, this other one is one with the... And this is even heavier. This one here is the one with the bayonet.
Mm-hmm.
How would you use this rifle? Would it be difficult to take the bayonet off, or would you have?
No, you had a hole set to put this in and the cover in.
And that came off. This is a Lee Enfield Mark III. And was this just a single cartridge rifle?
Yeah, that's right.
And this is how the war was fought.
Yeah.
And would the enemy be carrying things similar to this?
Mm-hmm. As I say, I didn't. I only used a rifle for a little while in France. They issued us when we were in the machine gun with revolvers, because we had to carry our signal equipment, telegraph instruments and flags and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So that I didn't have much. I didn't carry a Lee Enfield. It was a Lee Enfield by the time we got there. They'd replaced the Ross, and I know when I was. I did use the rifle once, and we were marching behind the infantry, the signal section, the machine gunners, you see, and in France, I think it was at Arras, I think. But anyway, I was walking alongside the commanding officer of the battery, Captain Morris, and the runner was on his other side. And the infantry had done the dirty work. We were just following up, you see, so we could consolidate the machine guns to set up a defense, because counterattacks were inevitable eventually, you see. So this, all at once a German soldier jumped up out of a trench, and he was a survivor, I guess, and he fired a shot at Captain Morris and hit him through the chest. And I took a pot shot at him with my rifle. Whether I hit him or that, I don't know, but he jumped back into the trench, and the runner who was with us had been there for quite a while. He was experienced, and he immediately started to... Captain Morris was still alive, and he started to bandage him up. And we got a couple of stretcher bearers and took him back to the dressing station, you see, to get him proper dressing.
I'd like to look at some of the other memorabilia that you brought along here. It's most intriguing.
Incidentally, Captain Morris survived because
Did he?
Yes, he was on the varsity rowing team 2 years later. My brother-in-law was with us, and he went to University of Toronto after he got home from the war, and Morris was there, and he was on the rowing crew.
You didn't have to call him sir after that, eh?
No.
This looks like it may have been something worn by a German.
Yes, it's a German forage cap. And how I got that, the Canal du Nord, we were held up for a while, and I went down this dugout, and there was we were just loafing around there, and there was a German there with his head on the table. He was obviously dead. Somebody was throwing those bombing, I guess, and that hat was on the table alongside him. So I picked it up and put it in my haversack, and I've had it ever since.
Were the soldiers allowed to bring back souvenirs of this sort, or did you sort of have to smuggle them back?
Well, anything that wasn't too obvious, I just put it in my haversack. And later on, I picked up towards the end of the show, I picked up a German officer's revolver that was lying there. He was dead too. And
you said towards the end of the show, it was like going to a movie. Is that what it was like?
Yes, and I went to Paris on leave. Of course, we had to take everything that we owned with us on leave. But from Germany, this was after the war, and somebody stole it from my room in the hotel.
Listen, speaking of Paris, I've been told over the years that you're quite a ladies' man. What were the French girls like then?
Where'd you get that idea?
I was just told
I
that.
can't imagine that.
I've seen you on the dance floor. You have more vitality than most of us young fellas.
Well, I can dance if I have the right partner.
But you don't want to talk about the French girls, eh?
Well, yes, I could tell you about one. I had a sister who was educated at a convent in Brussels. She, an aunt of mine, my mother's brother married a Dutch lady from The Hague, and her sister was a head of a Ursuline convent, and so they persuaded my mother to send my two sisters to this convent, you see. And they made friends, and there was this one girl, her name was Arlette Moreau. She'd been sending me cigarettes in the trenches. I'd never seen her, and when she said, if you come to Paris, come and see us.
And you did?
I did.
You couldn't pass up an invitation like that.
Oh, it made a tremendous difference because I took her dancing and so on. And,
Harold, time is going to run short. We have so many things we wish to talk about. I hope I don't make too much noise with this. This is an actual helmet that the troops wore in World War I.
That's right.
It's extremely heavy. This one looks like
right.
This looks like it may have been
Looks like
dinged with shrapnel.
well, it shows that it was handy anyway. You'd probably go and hit him in the head if it hadn't been for that. That's what you wore them for.
They sure have changed, and they've become a lot lighter, and they say even more durable.
I don't know. I have my own, of course, at home, but
Over here, I would assume this is a gas mask. Is this correct? Is this your own?
no.
This is not, eh?
No, they got this from the armies, I would imagine, where they got the rifles from.
This is extremely cumbersome.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to wear one of these?
Very seldom. The fellows, the originals, you know, in the beginning of the war, they were the victims of the first gas attack at Ypres, And so the Germans didn't use gas so much once we got gas masks, and
There are several old-timers from the First World War, and it wasn't until recent years that the gas, was it mustard gas?
yeah,
That was used in those days?
that's right.
And the symptoms of mustard gas lingered with so many of the old-timers for such a period of time. And
Yeah, I guess it would, yes.
just in recent years, many of them are suffering from what happened back during the First World War.
Oh, yes.
Were you ever injured?
Yeah, playing soccer.
Playing soccer, that's the...
we
But you wouldn't be playing soccer in Europe.
Well, definitely. Well, they call it football there, but it's soccer. And I played a lot of soccer. I played at schools and so on. And we were out on rest in France.
R&R.
Yes. And I was playing centre half for the machine gun soccer team, you see. And we didn't have any shin guards or anything like that. We played in army boots, you know. And the big fella missed the ball and kicked me on the shin. Took about 6 inches of skin off, you see.
Does that look like your old soccer team?
That's it, yes. No, that's the, wait a minute.
Yep, there's a soccer ball sitting up front there.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the original that wasn't the original machine gun soccer. It wasn't the original 119 soccer team. No, it was machine gun. That's right. I'm the only Sioux fellow in there.
You look like the fellow standing at the right elbow, or sitting at the right elbow of the guy standing in the back, the fellow with the mustache.
No, I'm in the middle.
Are you right in the middle?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And
you had a lot of hair then.
Oh, yes, a lot more than I have now. And I had to get a first aid bandage put on the MO fixed me up, and battalion dressing station. And then we were called, next day we were called back into the line, and it was 3 or 4 days before we came out again, and by this time my leg was infected, and I had to go to Arras Hospital and get special treatment.
These medals all have special meaning to you, and time again is going to...
Yeah, well, those are just... there are 3 medals here that they gave us for cross-country running, you see. And I made from these others are medals since the war, you know, for tennis and badminton and so on. But they were made out of the balaclava cannon. And didn't cost them very much for the metal anyway. There were no such things as gold medals or bronze medals. They just gave us these medals.
You must have a house full of things going back. Not only were you in the First World War, but were you not in the Second War?
Oh, yes. Well, when did they, let's see.
The Second War, you're looking now 1939 to 1945.
Yes, well, I played soccer in the Second War. In Toronto, when I was stationed in Toronto, you see, and also tennis and badminton.
Is this the first coffee pot that was ever made? My goodness,
I don't
what
know.
a contraption that is.
It's strange to me. I don't ever remember seeing one of those.
They even have a stir with no spoon on it to stir your tea, I would imagine. This looks like an old burner of some sort.
I would think that would be very early in the show. I never saw anything like that when I was over there.
I imagine you'd keep some tea in there.
Possibly, yes.
And you would light it, you would put whatever fuel in here and stoke her up, and then put your cup on the top to warm it up. That probably would be used right in the trenches.
Yes, that's right. You were speaking about those medals. The one event we won, Colonel Rowland said he would, if we won this cross-country race in the south of England, the 5th Division, he would give us a weekend in London. We won it. And we got the weekend in London.
This trophy you've carried with you, and this is...
That was after the war, when we were stationed waiting to come back to to Canada, and they'll come back to Britain, of course, and first. And we won the first division, the first Canadian division soccer championship. I was the only man from the Sioux on that team, and that lady was the wife of the Major General, I've forgotten his name, the commander of the 5th Division, and she presented us with these little trophies.
Harold,
And they're sterling silver.
Harold, I'd like to ask, what does Remembrance Day mean to you?
Well, it's a sacred event that we feel justified and obligated to observe, because there are a lot of people who are still suffering as a result of the war, and relatives, and it's a matter of showing respect to the fellows who served overseas and gave up their lives.
It's most interesting as you come close to Remembrance Day and you watch the veterans of World War I, and there are very few left.
Oh, there are very few.
And you watch the veterans of World War II go along Queen Street, men and women, marching to the Memorial Gardens for a service. And I sometimes wonder if it's just another holiday for a lot of people, and if they really know what it's all about.
Oh, I think so. I think they do. And I'm service officer for the Legion, and I spend a couple of mornings a week there interviewing people who need assistance, widows and dependents and veterans themselves and so on, applications for war veterans allowance and disability pension and what have you. So I'm in touch with these people all the time, and it's a sacred duty.
Did you ever think after World War I that there would be a World War II?
No, never even thought. We thought about it was getting back home.
When you did come home, were you able to get right back into a normal life, get back to work?
Yes, oh, yes. I didn't. It was quite a time between the end of the war and by the time we got home, you see, because we were in the Army of Occupation in Germany, and then as I say, we had another month in 6 weeks in the south end of France, or southeast, I guess it was, and then came home.
Harold, we'd like to thank you so much for spending the past 30 minutes with us talking about World War I, and I do hope for our viewers that it has a little more impact now that Remembrance Day is here, or will be here very shortly, and you have a deeper understanding of what all these things are all about. My guest, Harold Tolley, and again a sincere thanks to the Sioux Historical Society for supplying some of the material that we've worked with on this edition. My name is Harry Wolfe. I'll be back in 7 days. So long, everybody.
You gotta get up, you gotta get up, you gotta get up this morning.
Just leaving Bombay, bound for old Blighty shore, heavily laden with time-expired men, bound for the land they adore. There's many a soldier just finished his time, and many a twerp signing on. They'll get no promotion this side of the ocean, so cheer up, my lads, bless 'em all. Bless 'em all, bless 'em all, the long and the short and the tall. Bless all the sergeants and WO1s, bless all the corporals and their blinking sons, for we say goodbye to 'em all, as back to the